In the early 2000s, television comedy operated from a distance. Sitcoms favored multi-camera setups and wide, objective angles, where the audience acted as passive observers watching a stage play. But a medical show is a different ecosystem. Drop a viewer into a teaching hospital filled with rapid-fire clinical jargon, life-or-death stakes, and a dozen moving parts, and they get lost. You need a narrator to guide them through. Series creator Bill Lawrence recognized a problem with this format. Having a character stand in the hallway delivering dry, monotone medical exposition would completely drain the energy out of a scene. Traditional hospital shows could get away with sterile, serious explanations. Scrubs was trying to pack dozens of jokes, visual gags, and character quirks into a tight 22-minute runtime. A traditional, objective camera would let the audience tune out the clinical details, killing the momentum of the episode. To survive, the writers had to completely collapse the boundary between the lens and the protagonist. The answer was John Dorian, better known as JD. He is a self-described sensi, a highly sensitive, deeply neurotic, and constantly distracted medical intern. The production made a highly aggressive choice. The camera itself would operate entirely from inside JD's head. This technique is known as subjective visual framing. By tying the lens directly to one specific, flawed character's perception, the writers gained a massive new tool for delivering jokes. We only know what JD nets, and we see exactly what he imagines. Objective reality went out the window. If JD felt overwhelmed, the physical space around him could visibly shrink. If he felt heroic, the lighting and wind could shift to match his ego. This move converted the hospital into a space governed by JD's emotions, allowing the show to use the camera as a comedic instrument rather than just a recording device. If you look at the episode list for the first 8 seasons, almost every single title begins with the exact same word: my first day, my mentor, my way home. Every episode functions as a specific journal entry. By establishing this diary-driven logic, the show justifies a world where JD's feelings can physically warp the reality of the hospital. Because we are reading a diary, the screen can instantly cut to rapid-fire surreal vignettes. A passing thought about a frustrating coworker instantly materializes as a visual daydream where that coworker's head inflates and pops like a balloon. These bizarre tangents played out inside an actual decommissioned medical center in North Hollywood, overseen by real-life medical advisors who provided the writers with factual, accurate clinical scenarios. Filming with a single camera setup, using one primary camera instead of a traditional multi-camera bank, gave actors like Neil Flynn freedom to heavily improvise on set. The editing team could easily warp the rhythm of the scene in post-production to accommodate his unscripted tangents. These daydreams served a critical structural function. When an episode dealt with a patient's terminal illness or a fatal surgical mistake, the subjective fantasies provided an exhaust valve. They allowed the show to process devastating grief while still functioning as a half-hour comedy. But trapping your audience inside one character's head creates a narrative bottleneck. You cannot easily develop the rest of your ensemble cast if you only ever see them through JD's eyes. To fix this, the writers introduced a specific mechanic, the his story and her story episodes, where the narrative viewpoint actively shifts to a supporting character like Elliot or Dr. Cox. This shift followed a strict physical rule. The internal monologue only transfers to another character at the moment of physical contact with JD. The second their skin touches, the voiceover hands off, locking us into a brand new subjective reality. The flavor of the visual comedy changes immediately. When a high-strung perfectionist character takes over the narration, the cutaway gags stop being goofy pop culture parodies and start reflecting deep-seated fears of failure and familial rejection. This physical handoff proved that the subjective universe could be shared. It allowed viewers to experience the specific, terrifying pressures of each distinct medical role, turning an experimental device into a deeply empathetic ensemble piece. By its 9th season, the series underwent a soft reboot, a transition where the setting shifted to a medical school and JD stepped away from his role as the primary anchor. To signal this, the defining naming convention of the episodes shifted. They no longer started with my, but with our, pointing directly toward a collective viewpoint. The narrative torch, along with the chaotic, surreal fantasies that defined the show's style, passed to a new medical student named Lucy Bennett. Critics and audiences were highly divided on this new cast, but the production relied on the exact same mechanical foundation. The subjective daydreams were still driving the plot. The survival of the format in Season 9 showed that the surreal comedy was baked into the show's writing philosophy, persisting even as the lead actor stepped away. Now, a 2026 revival is bringing the original creators and core cast members back to the hospital for a 10th season. This presents a massive narrative challenge. The daydreams and frantic editing were designed to capture the panic of naive interns in their 20s. Now, those same characters are seasoned, middle-aged medical professionals, but the media landscape has caught up to the show. The rapid-fire, intensely subjective editing style that felt highly experimental 20 years ago is exactly how modern audiences consume digital media today. The legacy of Scrubs relies on its profound trust in perspective. By anchoring its camera entirely inside the irrational, easily distracted, daydreaming minds of its characters, the show built a highly accurate model of what it actually feels like to be human.